Oui, je checkais le temps. Let's fucking go. Ouais, je suis dans les ads. Là, je suis plus dans les ads. 40, 39. Bridge 2.0. Moi, je pense qu'on écoute des flames. Qu'est-ce que les flames font? Who knows? Ouais, tu te promènes, pis là, tu découvres des. Qu'est-ce que. Ouais. Moi, je pense que c'est une juicing mécanique que t'équipes. Je pense vraiment que c'est ça. On va voir.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers from Grinding
Indeed.
Gear Games, and welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of Path of Exile Keepers of the Flame, which is coming out 1 week from
Cool.
now on October the 31st. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Hive-born crawler pet by following the instructions below. Without further ado, let's roll the trailer for Path of Exile Keepers of
Trailer.
the Flame.
We, the Keepers of the Flame, serve the will of the Dreamer. His instructions whispered
We
from
pay it
beyond
now.
the wall of sleep. But now, the Hiveborn are here, on Rayclast, and they seek to poison
Kids
our
need pas
world.
breach. Ok, les mobs apparaissent.
We must close their breaches, destroy their hives, slay their breach lords. And by his gifts, the Dreamer
Whoa!
provides. They brought this war to our world, but we shall end it, whatever it takes.
Serious item. New skills and support. Oh, le monde va être content. Bloodline classes. What? Ouais. New Uber bosses. What? Ah, les Uber boss, ça doit être les versions Uber de ce qui avait release last league. Makes sense.
Now, as you can see, this expansion is a true sequel to the Breach League, first introduced to the game in 2016. We felt like it was time to progress the story of Breach, bringing with it a slew of new updates to the base game. In today's stream, we'll take you on a deep dive into Path of Exile Keepers of the Flame, beginning with the League mechanic, covering all the fearsome challenges it presents, and the new twisted ways you'll be able to empower your character. After that, we'll dive into the new ascendancy options possible with Bloodline classes. Then we'll cover the much anticipated and synchronous trade system coming to Path of Exile 1.
Nice.
Afterwards, we'll move into the new Uber Pinnacle bosses, how to access them, and some new drops worthy of the added difficulty. Finally, we'll cover some notable quality of life improvements before moving on to our supporter packs and challenge rewards. We'll then have a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile's game directors Mark and myself your questions from Twitch chat. And after the live stream, we'll drop the full patch notes at 11 AM New Zealand time or 3 PM Pacific. So let's get started. I'll hand things over to Mark to introduce the new league.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director
Mark.
on Path of Exile. Breach is a beloved league that has had an iconic history in PoE. We intend to honour that legacy with our first ever sequel league, Keepers of the Flame. This develops every aspect of Breach, adding new layers to discover, richer lore, scarier bosses, and entirely new mechanics. That said, This is still Breach, so you will still be opening breaches and slaying hordes of otherworldly monsters. The Breach Lords have found the means to stabilize the connection between their realm and Rayclast. Now, with their grip tightening, we learn their true goal in our world: conquest. The threat they pose has now escalated to home soil. On the coast in Act 1, you'll encounter Aelith, the founder of the Keepers of the Flame. This is a monastic order sworn to defend Rayclast from the Breach Lords. The exit to the Mudflats has been barricaded by Hiveborn, Breach monsters that are working to claim every inch of Rayclast. Aelith can grant you a small spark of the power of the Flame, allowing you to blast away their barricade and move onwards.
The fuck?
Once you enter the Mudflats, you'll find it infested with Breach monsters. They appear to be constructing a kind of hive, creating strange shapes and structures that absolutely don't belong. Time to purge them with fire. Aelith
Non, mais là,
needs you
ça,
to
c'est pour la,
protect
ça, c'est
her
la
as
quest
she
version.
empowers the flame to do so. Hold off
Ils
the
ont changé
assault
mode
long
place pour la ligue
enough,
mécanique.
and she'll be able to demolish the hive with cleansing flame. In other areas, the gap between worlds is strained. Here, you'll find a more familiar encounter with a new twist. A massive breach hand sunders the space between dimensions, and touching it will open an unstable breach, causing monsters to flood in.
Ouais, ça c'est une breach.
If you can slaughter them quickly enough, you can stabilize the breach.
Ah.
This brazen action can draw the attention of Vroon, Marshal of Zesht, who will do everything it can to stop you.
C'est un boss.
Defeating this boss will permanently seal the breach, severing another connection between the Breach Lord's world and Rayclast. These stabilized breaches are similar to what a breach once was, but with upgraded monsters, a success condition to shoot for, UI tracking to keep the player informed of their progress through the encounter, and satisfying feedback when you do manage to complete the encounter. We've taken all the lessons we've learned since the release of Breach 9 years ago and improved upon it in every way we can. However, much of the joy of Breach came from its simplicity. While we want to modernize the mechanic, we don't want to undermine the core experience. You're still mostly just slaughtering hordes of enemies in a circle. Finally, in endgame areas you might run into breach constructions that have been left unopposed for too long, and have grown into their full twisted glory. Breach hives. Towering flesh-crafted cities in the sky. These are the visions of the Breach Lords made real in Rayclast, teeming with breach monsters.
Ouais.
You must raid and destroy these cities with the help of Aelith and her flame. In some of these hives, you may even encounter some of the Breach Lords themselves, who will not be happy you're intruding on their planned conquest. Now, let's talk loot. Of course, being in exile is hard work, and you're unlikely to help entirely out of the goodness of your heart. Fortunately, Aelith has power and rewards aplenty, born of the Breach Realm itself, to offer you for your assistance. Help her, and she'll bring you to the Monastery of the Keepers, the hallowed halls of her order. Here, you'll find the Genesis Tree, the growing heart of the Keeper's power. On interacting with it, you'll find that this tree has a tree. That's right, it couldn't be Path of Exile unless the tree also had a tree. More importantly, the Genesis Tree is an engine of unholy creation, and a profitable one. As you complete breach encounters and work more with Aelith, you'll be able to grow the Genesis Tree larger and larger, sprouting additional limbs.
What the fuck?
Each of these limbs, you'll notice, has their own inventories. These can be used for an unusual method of crafting new items.
What?
With this system, you'll be able to grow currency, uniques, equipment, and a new kind of otherworldly item, grafts. Grafts are breach hands grown directly from the Genesis Tree, born of the same flesh and sinew as the invading monsters. These fuse directly to your body, in a completely safe process. Don't worry about it. With grafts, you can harness the power of the breach. Some provide passive benefits like this, or this, but they
Wait,
can
so-
also grant a wide selection of powerful skills. These graft skills can provide a flexible way to fill gaps in your build, offering everything from damage to potent defensive buffs and
Like this
crowd
character
control.
power. Damn. Okay.
For example, the Battering All graft will call massive arms to erupt from the earth, stunning
What?
all those they hit. For some additional pack clearing power, you could consider the Squalling Tool graft. When commanded, this graft will cast Dance in the White, creating a deadly ice tornado which aggressively seeks enemies and fires off bursts of ricocheting projectiles when you critically strike with skills. For some further utility and a useful buff, try out the Storming Ash graft. This can be commanded to call down a ring of bolts from the sky that will leave behind the new Radiant Ground. Radiant Ground grants a potent damage buff to allies standing within it and makes their hit damage lucky.
Okay.
If you're simply after raw damage, look no further than the Erupting Zoth graft, which causes massive eruptions of fire where you command, which then re-erupt when you warcry.
What the
There are a
fuck?
total of 16 different graft types you can grow, each with their own skill. You can even unlock a second graft slot as you progress through Aelith's questline, so feel free to mix and match Flesh Zone horrors to your heart's content. Now, grafts aren't just here to make you stronger, they are also your means of feeding the Genesis tree, which needs constant supplies of graft blood to grow anything useful. You can do this by defeating breach monsters, which will leave behind blood that your graft will automatically collect.
Ah, cool.
When you feed this blood to the tree, your allocated passives will be put to work. This section of the Genesis tree can be used to grow new grafts for you, which the Genesis tree will then birth in a gruesome display. Basic passives on the tree might increase item rarity of
Wait.
birthed grafts, or the chance to birth additional grafts. These passives can target specific types of grafts, and this passive causes grafts to be birthed with a random amount of quality. Quality improves the amount of blood that can be stored by your grafts. This section of the Genesis tree births currency items. Basic passives can result in more or better currency. Allocate this passive to sometimes cause a shower of currency to burst forth from the flesh of the tree. Yeah, it's a bit gross, but working with the organic matter of a bunch of dead otherworldly creatures was never going to be a clean affair.
Old born orb of it.
Grafts
Why?
themselves are born of a different world, so are unmodifiable by most
Weird.
currencies. However, with this passive, the Genesis tree can occasionally grow fleshy mockeries of currency orbs. These function like augmentation orbs, regal orbs, or exalted orbs, but they
That's
work on
pretty
your
gassed.
grafts instead of normal gear. Yep, it's graft crafting. Allocating this passive can result in Foulborn currencies. This Foulborn Exalted Orb, for instance, behaves as a normal Exalted Orb, except it guarantees a higher tier modifier. By locking out a large portion of
It's
the
either
lower rolls,
exalted.
a normal Exalted Orb would be able to hit. The largest section of the Genesis tree is used to grow rare equipment items. For these, you have a lot of agency to influence the type and modifiers on your grown item. For example, you can specifically target boots with a dexterity requirement, with an increased chance for speed modifiers,
Yeah.
and reduced chance for cold modifiers. Or maybe you'd prefer to look for a two-handed axe with increased chance for physical modifiers. This section of the tree is for growing unique items. Similar to the equipment section, there are passives that let you target growing specific types of uniques or rarer uniques. The process of growth is not always a perfect one, however, and can result in some defects. This passive can result in birthed uniques becoming Foulborn, which mutates one of the existing modifiers on the item into a new one, resulting in some interesting new ways to use that unique.
Okay.
For example, this Foulborn Quill Rain no longer has increased projectile speed, but instead has increased area of effect.
What?
Another Foulborn Quill Rain could replace the mana gained on hit with the much more powerful modifier where
What?
insufficient mana doesn't prevent your bow attacks. Here are
Yeah.
some other examples.
Non, c'est pas trop. Elemental, dude, juste strictement Elemental Overload.
This passive even gives a rare chance for Foulborn uniques to have multiple different modifiers mutated. I'm sure you'll come up with some extremely powerful uses for these.
Ouais.
We'll
Body
leave it up to
item
you
vraiment
to
unique.
discover what this mysterious
À
part
travers
of the
tout le jeu.
Genesis tree can grow. So, ultimately, you'll be slaying masses of breach monsters, harvesting blood with the aid of your grafts, feeding that to the Genesis tree, growing some items and better grafts, and back again to the slaughter. As with all our challenge leagues, this league will come with a set of 40 challenges to pursue, and completing them will award you with the Keeper of the Flame armor set, allowing you to truly embrace becoming a monk and worshipping the Dreamer.
Je veux grind le 40 sur 40.
Now, graft skills won't be the only new tools to play with. In 327, we're also adding a collection of new skill and support gems. Let's go over them now. Kinetic Rain is a new wand attack, which covers the ground in unstable kinetic energy. These hazards collapse at the slightest touch, releasing their energies into any unfortunate soul who happens to be standing on them. With enough projectiles and area of effect, an enterprising exile could carpet the world in dangerous kinetic force. Wall of Force creates a barrier of kinetic power, causing allied projectiles to ricochet towards targets automatically. Drop one behind a boss and redirect the bolts of your armies. I'm sure you'll find ways to break this one. Conflagration is a new bow attack which rains down fiery bolts from above that stick into the ground and pulse as you
Je veux
approach.
jouer ça.
Once you get close enough, these bolts detonate,
Ouais.
causing ravaging
Genre
ignites.
Toxic Rain, mais en feu, c'est
These
sick.
bolts chain
Puis ça
react,
explose.
allowing you to create fields of incendiary destruction.
Moi, je veux jouer ça.
Thunderstorm is a bow attack, which creates a whirling storm of
Wait.
wind and lightning where it lands.
Never mind.
While
Je veux
you're
jouer
within the
ça.
storm, it will rapidly grow, until it becomes violently thunderous with lightning-infused clouds. At this point, leaving the storm will cause it to detonate, dealing damage to everything within and releasing a flurry of tornadoes in all directions. Attacking with kinetic
Juste un
fusillade will
cercle.
create
Ça fait un
hovering orbs
cercle.
of energy. These linger for a few moments above you, before zipping off to nearby targets, chaining between them, then detonating. Living Lightning support will bring to life living sparks of energy, elemental minions that zap through packs of enemies with speed and ease. Use these alongside your spellcasting to augment your pack clearing abilities, or find whatever means possible to cover the world
Dude, je
in
sais pas
living
ce que je veux
sparks of
jouer.
ruin.
Mais ça a l'air sick. Ça a l'air sick.
Windburst support unleashes chaotic tornadoes as you attack, which ricochet around wildly and quickly. These deal moderate damage as they travel, but will explode into a highly damaging burst when they expire. So it's a choice between scaling their duration up to get better coverage, or down to access the burst more quickly. Kinetic Instability is a support gem to go along with the new wand attacks that causes enemies slain to leave behind those same orbs
Man.
of shimmering energy that Kinetic Rain creates.
Ouais, whatever
One
ça.
might ponder just how many orbs you can create if you were to use both.
More or.
In 327, exiles will be able to absorb
Well, of
the
course
power
so.
of some of the bosses they defeat. These take the form of new Ascendancy class options, called Bloodlines. Bloodline classes are a new means of character customization in the endgame. They are secondary
Okay.
Ascendancy classes that are unlocked by defeating specific endgame bosses. They are allocated with your normal Ascendancy points, and you'll have to choose how many of your points go into the original Ascendancy and how many into your Bloodline class.
Okay.
This means there is a nigh limitless ability to mix and match here, as you could choose to invest just a couple points into your Bloodline, or max it out, and you could take any Bloodline with any base Ascendancy class that you see fit.
Fait que tu peux faire le combo que tu veux.
To
Ok.
unlock your Bloodline, hunt down the endgame boss whose power you desire, and defeat them, or have a friend help, and claim the power for your own. There are 10 Bloodline classes to discover. Bosses who offer this power are typically associated with past leagues, giving additional reasons to engage with
Hello.
that league content. Let's run over a few examples. The Chaos Bloodline will be offered to you by the Trial Master,
Okay.
if you manage to succeed his final challenge. With his blessing, you can greatly augment your Val skills in different ways.
Val
Priest of
skill.
Yalmak lets you use vow skills much more often, while Priest of Kopek makes it harder to build up vow skills, but makes them far more powerful. Or take Corruption's Embrace, which grants more vow keystone powers the more corrupted items you have equipped. The Ashabi bloodline can be gained by, you guessed it, defeating Ashabi. Her abilities are drawn from the 3 types of life force that manifest within as Marian spirits. The Wild Bear rewards you with adrenaline for generating rage. The Vivid Cat gives your elusive buffs a chance to refresh, as well as making you more stealthy while elusive. The Primal Owl allows your unleashed spells to reoccur many additional times, and get stronger for each time they reoccur. The Nameless bloodline comes from the King in the Mists. Be forewarned, his menacing power comes at a great cost. With the Unseen Hand, you can equip a 3rd ring. But you'll have to decide if that comes at the expense of having no amulet, no belt, or no flasks. Unlight Silhouette adds a hefty life cost to all your spells, but they deal additional chaos damage based on the amount of life spent. Of course, there is more to come. What powers might you glean from delving deep underneath Rayclass to fight all the Crystal King? What secrets can you learn from Lycia, Herald of the Scourge, waiting at the end of the Forbidden Sanctum? As you can imagine, there are countless possible combinations with the system. You could be a Slayer that embraces corruption and vile power, or perhaps you'll play an Occultist that doubles down on their dark power by integrating the Nameless bloodline. We are excited to see what crazy and interesting builds players come up with. In the most recent Path of Exile 2 expansion, the Third Edict, we introduced a much anticipated feature, fully asynchronous trade. It was a fantastic success. So now, we're excited to announce that we'll also be adding this feature into Path of Exile 1. When you reach Act 6, you'll be able to find Faustus in Lion Eye's Watch. Previously, he just operated the currency exchange. Now, he will also act as a steward for your merchants tabs. These are where you can place items for sale, for direct and instant purchase by other players even when you're not online. To list an item, simply place it in the tab and select a currency and an amount.
I'll let you know.
Once listed, other players will be able to find the item by searching for it via the trade website or the new in-game market search. To purchase something for yourself, it's as easy as hitting this button, which will teleport you to the seller's hideout, where you can view their merchants tabs, buy the item, and also view the rest of their wares in case something else catches your eye. Every purchase costs a small fee of gold, as Faustus takes his cut. To account for this further drain on gold, acquisition and cost balance elsewhere in the game has been adjusted. Anything you've managed to sell successfully will have your profits collected here, in a separate tab to claim at your leisure. To be clear, previous means of trading, such as via pre-existing premium stash tabs and the website, will still function just as before. Merchants tabs, and the asynchronous trading that comes with them, are an entirely additive feature on top of the already existing methods to trade. You might find yourself needing the trade system to buy some upgrades, because this update also introduces 3 new Uber Pinnacle boss fights. These encounters are manifested from the memories of Zana, and in her long torment, they have festered into something truly deadly. These fights offer an imposing challenge, alongside powerful rewards. In order to gain access, similar to existing Uber Pinnacle fights, you'll need to discover fragments dropped by Tier 17 map bosses. Each attempt at the new Uber Pinnacle fights will require 5 of these. Let's dig into some of the challenges you'll need to face in these new Uber versions. In the original incarnation of Neglect fight, the statues can be used to block the laser beams to hide behind, giving you an opportunity to avoid being shocked, frozen, or killed. When you run near these statues, they activate and allow you to reposition them. While activated, they will not stop the lasers, meaning you want to position them well then avoid them. However, in the Uber version of this fight, instead of being a safe haven, the statues will refract the laser beams, causing a ruckus of energy to cover the arena. Activating them will prevent the refraction, so unlike the base fight, where you want to position them well and then avoid them, you'll be wanting to constantly keep these statues active. But then, you have to deal with their assault of attacks. While fighting the incarnation of fear, these fiery orbs will slowly clutter up the arena, locking off portions of it until you bait the boss into detonating them himself with his thrown spear. When Uberified, these orbs are attached by a flaming leash to the boss, rotating around him constantly. More and more will spawn as the fight goes on, making it even more imperative that you clean them up by cleverly using the boss's abilities against him. Normally in the Incarnation of Dread fight, during the bullet hell phase, you have to acquire a red rose, run it to the boss, then collect a blue rose, doing the same, causing it to get heavy stunned and interrupting its mechanic. In the Uber version, you have to do the same, but in order to get the blue rose, you have to defeat the Incarnation of Neglect, and to get the red rose, you have to defeat the Incarnation of Fear. Good luck. Given the difficulty of these bosses, their rewards should be worth your while. Let's take a look at some. From the Uber Incarnation of Neglect fight, we have Bitter Instinct, a spiky shield that turns retaliatory strikes into preemptive ones, making it just a matter of time before the long arm of justice crushes your foes. Alternatively, you might find Festering Resentment, a poisoned blade with an unending supply of toxins built into the hilt. These toxins are put to good use, causing every spell you trigger to be capable of poisoning with all damage it deals, enabling a truly crazy trigger-centric poison ruckus. And from the Uber Incarnation of Dread, the Hallowed Monarch, a counterpart to the Dark Monarch, which focuses more heavily on investing into one or a few minions, rather than growing your hordes to massive proportions.
What?
Storm Rayclast, with your chosen few at your side, stealing power from your enemies as you go. We've got a number of quality of life changes to bring to 327 as well. Many of which you may have seen already in some of our pre-livestream teasers, but for those who haven't, Heist is a mechanic which has long frustrated some players who may otherwise have been interested in the rewards it has to offer, but have no desire to grind through the early progress of finding and running low-level contracts to get all of the rogues to their maximum level. Well, starting in 327, Heist rogues will automatically begin at maximum level, so you can start your dubious criminal career without all the busy work. Points invested into your Atlas passive tree will now be refundable with gold. Just speak to Kerak to do so. For players who love jumping between strategies, there's also an option to instantly refund your entire tree, which of course can now also be done with your regular passive tree as well. Now you can make all your decisions with no regrets. Well, maybe some regrets. You no longer need to purchase bestiary orbs. You can now itemize beasts for free directly from your bestiary. From late Act 1, you can now mass identify your items at an NPC in every town.
Ça doit être cool pour la campagne parce que des fois on en manquait.
This does not require Scrolls of Wisdom at all. While using an Alteration Orb, you can now hold Alt to swap to using an Augmentation Orb, if one is available. Opening a Blight Chest will now open all other Blight Chests near it. Rogue's disenchanting services can now be accessed from towns and hideouts. Kerak missions now have a handy icon to show at a glance what kind of mission they are. Holding down Control and right-clicking on stacked decks will now continuously open them to your inventory, notifying you in chat what the outcome is. If you still want to open them direct to the ground, to let your loot filter provide a dose of dopamine, you can still do that too by also holding Shift. Val Orbs can be used on monsters encased in essences, to the same effect that Remnants of Corruption have. When multiple skill gems are ready to level at the same time,
Boom.
you'll now be able to click this button to level them all up at once. Next up, we're going to be talking about our new League supporter packs. Today, we're launching 2 new series of
Non,
supporter
c'est
packs.
tout ce qu'il avait annoncé.
The Champion of Theopolis and the Verdant Magus packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. The Champion of Theopolis series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Manifest a champion's ferocity, as the Lion's Might unique finisher effect rips your enemies to shreds. Open the Champion of Theopolis portal to end your crusade through maps in the style expected of a true victor of the arena. Defeat your enemies like a true gladiator, wearing the Grand Champion of Theopolis armor set. The armor awarded only to the most elite warriors of the Grand Arena. Take charge of the situation and storm into combat with the Flaming Minotaur's Quicksilver Flask effect.
The Champion's Podium map device rises up to honor the glory you've achieved as you activate it.
Ascend the stairs and stand atop the platform as you enter your maps. Each flame surrounding the platform represents a remaining use on your portal.
Ouais, un portail.
The burden-back billy goat carries all the supplies necessary for a campsite as he travels behind you in battle. When placed in a hideout, instead of roaming around like your other pets, their supplies are deployed, creating a small camp where you can access your stash and providing a place to take a load off while you rest next to the campfire. The Verdant Magus series contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Having
Oh, you're
Faust
going to
to sell
level
your items on your behalf is great and all, but sometimes you just want to feel a little bit more shady about your dealings. The Back Alley Trader hideout decoration is more secretive with your trades, creating distance between you and your customers. Note that until 327 is released, this Back Alley Trader will only serve as your currency exchange. Once it's out, it will be updated to have the new managed shop
Est-ce que tu
option
peux parler?
to also
C'est
facilitate your
nice.
trades.
Je veux ça.
The Verdant Wayfinder pet is a loyal companion to any Master Magus. As you approach waypoints, it envelops them with its vines, guiding you throughout Rayclast. Control
Oh, mais c'est un
Earth
pet,
and
j'aime
nature
pas avoir des
itself,
pets avec moi.
as the great Verdant Magus armor set envelops you in the ancient power now
Ouais.
lost to time. There's also a matching back attachment included. Remnants of the forest ripple out from within you with the Verdant Magus level up effect equipped,
Le level up
restoring
effect est
life
vraiment
to the
nice.
corrupted land.
Yep.
Call on an ancient golem to use their power to create a safe passage for you to retreat through with the Arcane Golem portal. As a Supreme Verdant Magus, you can travel to your Arcane Isle hideout,
Oh,
a
nouveau
cluster
hideout.
of islands held together by ancient magic passed down between elite mages.
Dude, il est actually sick, celle-là.
Stand atop your tower and relish the great heights you've reached above those who have
Damn.
not harnessed the arcane. These packs are now available for purchase on both PC and console and will remain so during Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame. Additionally, any microtransactions from these supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 2.
Ouais, c'est ce que je pensais, fait que je pense que je vais-
Meanwhile, the Crypt Keeper and Frisian Magistrate packs leave the store forever at the launch of
Not
the
the
Keepers of
moyen.
the Flame League. So now's your last chance
Le
to
Verdant,
purchase
il a l'air
them.
nice.
Thank you so much for your ongoing support. We're just about to
Ouais,
start
même le
the
premier
Q&A
était
with
déjà
Ziggy
mieux que les
D.
autres.
Afterwards, we'll post the full patch notes for Path of
Not
Exile,
bad.
Keepers of the Flame, at 11 a.m. New Zealand
Bon,
time,
c'est juste un
3
32
p.m.
minutes
Pacific.
reveal, mais...
With release at the end of next week,
Not
our
bad.
community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for the release. Keep an eye on the news. Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments. We're looking forward to
true.
holding off
Ouais.
the Breach Lord's
Ouais, il avait dit
conquest,
qu'il allait en avoir d'autres.
crafting
Mais I
gruesome
guess c'est
drafts,
les Bloodlines.
planning dozens of Bloodline-empowered
Mais pour moi,
builds,
c'est ils ont un
and
rework.
filling
mais
out
qu'on
our
peut
trees tree. We hope you all join us.
Ouais, true. Ouais, c'est peut-être de quoi qu'ils ont fait une vidéo, puis la Nancy l'ont rework après, genre, ou quelque chose, fait que juste ça.
G'day Exiles and welcome
Q&A, ça
to
peut être
the
long.
post-reveal discussion and Q&A with Jonathan and Mark, lead guys who make games, I believe was what we discussed as the titles.
Yeah,
That's the
official title. Yeah.
Excellent. I like it, it's good. We're talking about how to inflate their titles in the lead up to this. 327 Keepers of the Flame, the reveal we just had there was, I think, quite a banger, but I've been even more impressed with what I've been playing
Mais
here
en in
voyant
que c'est Breach 2.0,
with some of that, so we'll get
ça me
into
pose des
that in a
questions
moment. But
de
I'm curious,
qui vont
this is
les
kind of like a
amener dans
special kind of
PO2,
reveal day for
genre
PO1
PO2.
fans, as I think it marks a return to schedule for us.
No,
You
no.
announced this
No,
plan to do the
yeah.
4-month cycle for the games, two twos, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly hard. I'll tell you that, right? Like it can be pretty brutal on some of the stuff when it's like every 2 months you got a deadline. But yeah, I mean look, we have to do it, right? Like I mean that was always the intention to get the regular schedule. It's super important, so we have to make it happen. We have to make sure that is something that we can do going forward. But yeah, I would like I'm honestly I'm so happy that we managed to to get everything back, and I think it helps a lot.
I think like things feel a lot less like crazy here this visit for me, like, and things seem a bit more of a finished state as well from what I've been looking at. So
well, we're putting a lot more effort into sort of getting that production process down, making sure that everything's going well. Like we're hiring producers at the moment, just by the way, in case anyone's out there is like looking for as a for a production job. But it's something that we're really concentrating on, making sure that because when you've got a schedule like this, when it's this tight, you have to be really really careful, because like I would say one of the hardest things that we didn't expect, trying to make sure that we get the schedule this short, is you start to become really vulnerable to just like random things, like this person gets sick or like something like that, and that's like suddenly it's like a real challenge. So that's been real hard to adapt to. But yeah, I mean honestly we have to do it.
Because PoE2's 030 kind of, we missed it by a week or two as well.
Yeah,
Like, normally that's okay.
Yeah.
You slip a week or two, but now all of a sudden, now you got a bit too much more overlap with 327. And it certainly has less room for error. But again, that's why more production staff should help. And we are just going to get better at it. But yes, we made it to 326 and now 327. Mostly on schedule, give or take.
Ça leur a vraiment pas pris genre 4 mois complets faire PO1, genre ça. Je pense qu'ils font encore plus d'efforts dans PO2 que PO1, mais c'est bien correct là. Genre c'est cool ce qu'ils nous donnent versus rien avoir pendant un an.
Across both Path of Exiles. So.
yeah, I remember thinking.
Ouais, ils font du quoi pareil, mais tu sais, c'est comme tu compares à PO2, tu fais comme ouais. En 4 mois, ils ont.
It seems to be happening, so fingers crossed it keeps happening. Is the contingency just that like occasionally you just might delay by a few weeks here?
I don't want to. I really want to be
exactly
about it. Like,
we said we'd stick to the time and adapt the content around the time. Like consistency is key. So hopefully we can keep doing that. That's still our current philosophy and plan. So yeah.
I think you were telling me once before, Jonathan, that when you have that for a while, it kind of helps everyone get an idea of like scoping a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Content, like. I mean, look, it helps with everything, right? It helps with the players just feeling the consistency. It helps with like developers. Like it's just overall like a way better state to be in.
So, Breach 2, aka Keepers of the Flame. It's the first real direct sequel league in PoE. Now, I know we're kind of sequeling with stuff in PoE 2. There's like definitely follow-ups there, but this is the actual first true sequel league, and it seems like people are pretty keen on the idea. I think the reception's been pretty good so far, first impressions. What are your guys' thoughts on doing a sequel? Were you like anti-sequel, pro-sequel? Because I know people kind of...
I would say personally that so whenever you do a sequel, you're entering a dangerous territory, because people who didn't like the original could then now be like, oh, I'm disappointed because like as soon as they hear that it's a sequel to something they didn't like, they're like, it's not happy. So you could just be ruling out a bunch of people in your audience right away. Now, Breaches, I would say, is a pretty popular one, so like there's less danger there. Yeah. But effectively, in order to make a sequel to something, I think you really have to be doing something that had to be a real banger back when you did it, so that people actually are definitely on board from the beginning. In general, I'd say we'd prefer to do stuff that's like new, but I think this one was a good fit. It was a good example of something to do, and yeah, people are liking it. So it's
I mean, as Jonathan said, yes, like some leagues are more divisive than others. Some have more kind of X factor out there gameplay, with the whole Blight Tower defense, and some of them are more maps and a bit more crazy. and immediately you do turn off some people, and we know that going in. When we make these, we try and make it, you know, something good for everyone. But Breach had that, just like you're just slaying hordes of monsters. You're just killing. It's the classic. We talk about reinventing the wheel. Here we talk about not reinventing the killing monsters in circles. And it has that. And by the way, that is a massive thing when doing the sequel, is we're like, we must keep the killing monsters in circle.
Oh, it's a Breach.
Because
Breach.
The last thing I want to do is, and this is another risk of a sequel, is take something that people love and then just ruin it.
Right.
We really focused on the weaknesses of what Breach had, because it was nine years ago, almost to date. I think it was. I think it was December 9 years ago. So we're almost there. Yeah, just if you want to feel a bit old for a moment.
Breach.
You know, and I actually still remember working on it. It does not feel like it was that long ago. I made those 5, the 5 Breach Lords back when, and you know, put together all the monsters and all that interesting stuff back then. And I was like, what was I doing? Like we took the player characters, put some micros on them, and dunked them in red paint.
As was the style at the time.
You know, it was like, so it's not only been fun to come back and do a sequel. Which, by the way, we've codenamed Breakwall, which is obviously a given. But
important.
We've coming with like 9 years of lessons learned, including you know, with all the lessons learned from PoE 2 as well, and then coming back and being like, what do we know now that we didn't know back then? And it's like, okay, let's not sabotage the gameplay, the killing of monsters, the killing monsters in a circle, and let's focus on the weaknesses. And so then we looked at, okay, well, nowadays, if we were to do a league, it generally comes with, you know, some character power arc. You've got some crafting system. You know, there's generally a meta system, and then that's where you get like the grafts, the Genesis tree, and all that stuff come in. And again, focusing on that, less of like, you know, focusing on the combat mechanic this time around, because we kind of knew that was a success. You'll find that, you know, it might be less trivial with some of the other contents that's a little bit more like crazy with respect to combat. But we'll see.
I'm definitely eager to dive into like basically all of the things you mentioned there. But out of interest, what's like a league mechanic or a expansion that you either would or wouldn't want to sequel at some point? Like, what would be a bad example? Is maybe interesting.
Well, I think the one that you said there with the tower defense stuff, it's just like, that would be very divisive, right? Immediately, if we said doing a sequel and PoE 1 to that, there'd be immediately a bunch of people would be like,
I like
I know. A lot of people don't, right?
Both ends of this. I think you'll get the most passionate people wanting it, and then you'll get the most people that hate it on the other side.
Right.
For sure. That being said, like, it isn't like, oh no, that means Blight's never getting improved.
Right.
There's differences between overhauling and improving a league. And there's and obviously doing a narrative sequel where you kind of step away from some of it, and you know, so really here it's like, yes, Blight, there's so many leagues, right? Insert all of them will get attention. Sometimes they'll just be quality of life, similar to what we've done with Heist this time round, because honestly that probably deserves more. And then other times it'll just be an upgrade.
I certainly wouldn't want people to say, oh yeah, we're just going to do sequels from now on. That we're definitely not. Like, I don't think it's going to be the most common thing. I think it's just a thing we decided to do here, and you know, maybe we'll do it again sometime. But most of the time, I think people want new stuff and, you know, different new things.
I like the revisits. I wonder. There's definitely some lore and stuff I'd like to see expanded. Like, I feel like Harbinger, for example, touched on some stuff that was maybe only scratching the surface.
Part of what allows us to do the sequel here, by the way, and from a more production point of view, is that because we did the Twisted Domain and the new Breach monsters in PoE 2, we got to utilize the monsters. So we didn't take the bosses from PoE 2. We made full from scratch boss fights for this version, for Keepers of the Flame. Cool. But for the monsters, a lot of it's reusing the models, the animations, the rigging, you know, a lot of the art side of it. And because we get to do that, we get to then focus our attention on all those other things that we would otherwise have to have a bunch of resources dedicated to. So like, there's a kind of like two birds, one stone going on there, where we
Utan
not
to
only got
rollback
to
the
do
offering
it, we
to
got
get
to do it in a more
spamming.
cost-effective way that allowed us to focus on other features that are going in the expansion. So, you know, win-win for players and for us in that regard. But you know, it would be less trivial with other sequels or to other leagues where we don't necessarily have all the monsters and everything made like that. So, not to say it's impossible, but it's just an interesting factor that came up that allowed us to do more here than we might, if we don't forward think enough or forward plan enough, and I mean quite far in advance, because like making these full monsters from scratch is not a short-term process. We might not be able to do for some other leagues. So, just a kind of fun internal kind of consideration that we made.
Well, like an interesting thing here as well with the fact that Breach is in PoE 2, and I don't normally get into lore, so lore warning, but I'll try and keep it as oversimplified as possible because I definitely have delved into the deep end of the lore of this stuff. But so to simplify it, PoE 1, Chayula, baddie, we fight them. They're like the pinnacle boss from the first game, and yet in PoE 2 they're like explicitly not there as part of the boss of that, and also there's this lore kind of exploring the idea that they helped humanity at some point. So I'm curious if this expansion is kind of filling out the story in the in-between here, maybe explaining some of the stuff.
It 100% is. That was a huge other win we got to do here, because really there was like, okay, there's the breaches in PoE 1, previous to Keepers of the Flame, and then there's kind of breaches in PoE 2 with the Twisted Domain, and it's like, wait, how did we get here? What happened? Okay, so there's 25 years. It's what's going on here? So we wanted to. Given again, because 9 years ago we weren't really putting that much into the narrative of leagues and into you'd find back then we're not far from Onslaught League back then, right? It was just 20% of some stats. So, and even when we had Anarchy, there was Exiles, but like there's characters, but we didn't really have voice acting for anything. We've kind of stepped up our game in a lot of delivery.
Un combo fucké
puis
c'est mirror tier.
Come back and go, let's establish a bit more about Breach. Obviously, there's uniques and flavor text historically, but yeah, we got to establish a little bit more, add some interesting stuff to it. Meanwhile, also, progressing the narrative towards what if people are playing PoE 2 see. Now, that being said, if you just play PoE 2, you don't need to know all of this. If you just play PoE 1, good on you. You now know it all. It's all entirely optional information to know, but you kind of have this. Worth noting, on the kind of Chiola arc, there's a bit of like, is he good, is he bad kind of thing going on. Still to be determined, at least for the players.
He's got a cult following, but that doesn't necessarily mean one way or the other, does it?
He was a baddie here, you're an acolyte of Chiola over there.
Yeah.
What goes on in between? But
I was reading the flavor text.
Imagine made blood avec la table de strength en jouant quelque chose d'autre, genre, c'est fucking insane.
It's not a good idea to be following them, but there's power.
But like the monastery of the Keepers of the Flame is actually where the monk trained and from PoE 2 grew up and all of that stuff. So kind of little fun bits there. People playing both games will appreciate it. It's still great. It's going to be great in either game, and it allows us to develop. So because look, they're both set in Ray class, it's still a shared narrative, and it's nice to be able to like evolve all of that. And it's honestly been fun, really. Honestly, doing all of that.
It's cool to expand kind of like some of the story of the Ascendancies there as well. Like you're getting a bit more of a tie in there as well. But you said the monks trained there, though. I thought you were just telling me earlier that the monks trained here in the studio. What's
so technically now, officially, the monk has been trained by one of our IT administrators here, since he was the person I'm not sure what the martial art is, but he's very well trained. I believe a black belt, and we used him for our mocap reference.
That's so cool.
Hopefully he doesn't mind me mentioning that, but it was
awesome.
quite fun. I think our animators enjoyed that one a little bit as well. So
that's awesome. You guys hadn't really done too much of that in the past, or?
You mean mocap?
Yeah, like mocap.
I mean, the animators always film visual references, so like they've got a room basically where they go up and they're just like doing all the animation, acting out. They're often not actually mocapping technically with like all of the suit and everything, but they're often filming that and then doing animation to it.
I'd say one of the most useful pieces of technology that we've been able to benefit from is it's a literally single phone shot mocap, and very quick from recording to in-game animation. It works really well for animating obviously humans, but also for when it's involving just a single human. It's like ultra quick. Like if you have two and they have to interact and make contact, it's not very good at handling that, but it's been insanely fast. So you just get a single small tripod with a phone, and you can record a human and chuck it in game pretty rapidly. So that's been amazing, and honestly, almost all of the human animations you'll now see in game, where it's not someone punching or hitting another person. So like, it's not the best for combat and kind of scripted cinematic interactions between characters, but just those kind of freestanding town idols and all of that stuff, yeah, you can do pretty rapidly now. It's been a pretty big improvement, I'd say, in a cool way. So
yeah, and I mean, you're getting like PoE2 quality stuff in Path of Exile 1 as well. Like, I've definitely seen things like that's a lot more going on there than there usually is in PoE 1. You were just talking about the fact that the original bosses were just exiles with extra color filters on them, right?
I mean, everything new that goes into PoE 1 like has been a lot higher standard than some of the early stuff for a very long time, right? Because it's not like you have people being like, oh, you know what, I'm going to make this worse quality because it's going in PoE 1. Like, obviously they're going to make something look as good as we can make it, right?
So artists are artists,
exactly, right? So
I mean, the good quality art.
You could probably phone it in a bit more.
Biobro build Ali Breach.
Doesn't want to do that, right? They want to make stuff that's good. So
who wants to do that?
Yeah,
I appreciate
it's a
that
quick
mindset.
way to remove their job satisfaction.
Right.
Make it bad stuff.
It's too good.
No, just fuck off because we're fire.
Fair enough. So you mentioned the sanctity of the kill monster in Circle. So on the mechanical front, I noticed that there's actually two.
Parce que la FNN6 c'est Poison, que ils vont montrer des trucs de Poison.
Differences between the two and how they work.
We've got 4 encounters.
Il y a du choix à faire. C'est cool.
Total. The more common one is the kind of what we're saying is the hive. So the breach have come through those the hand portals. They've stabilized the breach and are now building their hives. And so you'll come across there's heaps of walls and constructs and some half organic, half inorganic. And you get the little spider things, which I think is the Twitch drop for the stream. You get those and they're kind of building and they're like putting together like molecule by molecule building these hives. And that's the one where you come in and you get given the power of the Keepers of the Flame, and that can just incinerate away all of the materia, and you're kind of just like running around pretending to be a Righteous Fire build for a moment.
I'll just note as well, like, you don't have to click any doors or like bump into any walls. They just evaporate before you.
You just run around. You run around burning stuff. It's kind of satisfying. You see ash going everywhere. There's a couple things going on there. So generally when you get to the center, you summon an Aelith, you start the encounter. And effectively just kill a whole bunch of monsters. They're trying to get to her, they're trying to kill her. They're not super effective at it. We're not doing the whole like, they are persistently wanting to aggro on her. They're going to try and kill you. That's honestly more of an immersive flavor thing than it is like meant to be too interruptive of a mechanic or anything like that. Again, because I wanted to just keep killing monsters being the primary focus.
But there is a thing where the more walls you burn, the more
there's amongst all the walls you can get these like spawners, these like hive portals, where the monsters can then come through. So if you want to activate more to have more monsters, have more difficulty and get more reward, you want to burn as many of those hive spawners as possible, and then they will turn into portals once the fight begins. If you just want to run to the center, start the fight, do the fight and leave, go for it. The other thing here is, though, that, of course, obviously this can be a bit of a clear, speedy thing where it's like, So, during those encounters, using the power of the purple flame, these kind of purple flames scatter out, and each of them kind of has a skill attached, just like an oh shit button. And so, like, if you're getting overwhelmed, there's, like, different things you can just click if you wanted to, if you needed to. Most powerful characters, you'll be fine. Just as it kind of like will send out a giant nuke and clear stuff, or like create this like flame wall, and anything that runs into it will burn. And that's honestly more to help out players that are kind of struggling or on the weaker end and aren't like, able to kind of keep up with it. So it just normalizes the difference between bottom end and top end a bit. Again, not meant to be intrusive, not meant to be like complicated. We kept it simple, and it's just like 99% of it. Just
when you boil it down, it's basically just like a fast-paced wave defense. Like, just survive 6-8 waves of monsters that are rushing at you pretty fast, and but it doesn't have that same clear speed pressure that the like basic one has.
Non, c'est fucking fort.
So that's one encounter. Second encounter
J'ai hâte que
is
les
like
autres soient leaks, genre les 7 autres, ça
have, historically been playing.
Et nous, le temps qu'on arrive au endgame, on va les savoir.
So these are breaches that haven't been stabilized yet. So they haven't come through to build their hive. So you activate it, it starts expanding, you kill all the monsters, it's revealing, and then once you've killed enough, and if you can kill enough, like it can be kind of hard early game, but like towards
Ou de quoi
endgame,
qui hit plusieurs fois rapidement, ou des trucs genre, c'est
progress
comme
bar
t'es capable de
filling up,
rager.
and once the breach gets to the end, that means that it will become stable. And so what was going to happen is when it becomes stable, the Breach are going to send through their like difficult monsters, their elites, their enforcers, you know, their front line to come through and, you know, secure the area so they can send through their like little worker spiders to start building their hives. So this is like a yet to be a hive. And so you obviously don't witness all of that. Generally what you do experience is you kill enough monsters, and then in the center the portal activates and a bunch of monsters and often a boss floods through. And so now you have to go back to the center and fight all that, kill everything, defeat the boss, get the loot, and then everything drops then and there once you successfully do that. If you can't do it, run away. That's up to you. You know, you can still play it the old way if you want and like not get so much rewards, just kill as many as you want and move on. But generally speaking, you'll want to go back to the middle. You want to kill the either waves of hordes of monsters coming through the portal or the boss that's
and then once you reach that stabilization point,
it locks open the time. So that's another good thing. So the existing Breach, I mean, obviously it's pretty outdated and even imbalanced, and often people were killing the Breach Lords, the wild ones, in like, you know, a matter of seconds. But you know, I wanted to make sure that boss fight didn't have a time condition. So once it stabilizes, that's it. You just once you kill them, it closes. You have infinite time to kill that boss and fight those monsters. You're not just like, oh my god, I got to do it. So like it is a more substantial, and generally because you've cleared everything in that circle now, it's like it almost like you created your own arena. You've got like a nice clear area where you can fight that boss and focus on killing that boss. Now he has minions in a regard, so obviously it's not just one-on-one, but you know, that mechanic's like quite cool. So that's the like Varun, the Marshal of Zesht fight. He has some specific drops. You generally want to kill him. And then, so that's encounter number 2. And then, encounter number 3. I know who's going on a bit of a thing.
Peut-être amulette. À moins que t'as besoin d'une grande amulette, peut-être amulette. Ben, belt, c'est que
the
mage.
first fight. It's kind of
Pas une
like,
belt que tant que t'as mage blood, après ça.
Some of these hives have been getting built for weeks or whatever, and now they're like, you know, full
Parce qu'une troisième ring, ça peut être insane.
Mega structures. So you climb the beanstalk as a
Parce que t'as des rings uniques qui sont vraiment sick, là.
You get up to the Sky Fortress, and honestly, it's kind of just like a map of breach monsters.
You're
clearing through.
Nah,
no timer at this point.
Les frappes, ça te donne fucking gros du mouvement de speed, ça te donne. Là, il y en a qui te donnent du damage, dépendamment de ce que tu veux, ça complète ton build, les places, fait que t'enlèves tout, fait comme.
Like a wave-based encounter. It's just a lot more epic, and you have to, you know, the same exact thing, except Aelith's like, it's going to take a lot more explosive power to destroy the rest of the hive and seal this portal, so you're not going to get out of here. So generally speaking, once you've killed all the waves, you then have to get out of the area before Aelith burns the entire thing to the ground.
Cool.
Normally you can survive that, not in this case. You might want to get out of there.
Ah, le oui, hein, true.
Sweet. You're not going to get that encounter too frequently.
Ouais, tu peux pas faire ça, fait que c'est...
A little bit of fun, a little bit more action-packed when you're trying to escape.
Ouais, c'est dégueu.
And then the fourth encounter is pretty similar to that, except it's just an area with your pinnacle boss, your in-game boss fight at the end of it.
And you basically didn't show those in the trailer, because I
ouais, que tes ring stats sont super importantes.
So much of the Uber bosses for the regular content, but you didn't really show any of these guys.
We generally avoid showing bosses for sure, especially new ones. You know, you get a silhouette of it, a single emerge shot, and for sure, like for the Ubers, we're like, well, they've got like 10, 15 skills each. Let's show one mechanic we've changed of each, you know. Maybe not the best option. Like, I know people like their full mystery, so like maybe lesson learned in the future might just show nothing. But we only did show one of all of their skills that have changed, you know, just so people get a general grasp of how they're changing. But I probably, given the feedback, I'm probably just not going to show those again. So,
fair enough.
You know, we'll let it be a mystery. But yeah.
So this skill tree, you actually did it. You made a skill tree. Well done.
The tree.
But this tree is quite fascinating, because it's not just a like a meta progression system for the league or something. Like, there is that, it is progressing, but it is a crafting system. It's a tree that is a crafting system, and from messing around with that, like, it feels kind of brilliant. Like, this is a really good idea. How did that come about?
It was kind of a mixture from Octavian and I can't remember who. Me and him and kind of Andrew, we all kind of just came up with ideas. But I think the original tree that spawns items or grows items and then hatches items came from Octavian. and the grafts, mind you, as well. He's
cooking.
Creative brain on that one. Comes up with some cool ideas. I like that kind of out there style of design, which is good. And so eventually we took that kind of idea. I was the one who brought Breach to the table and was like, oh, we can unify these, and that came from a interesting thing where in the Twisted Domain in PoE 2, you get these you have these trees made of hands that the environment artists made, and I really love them, and I'm like, normally because you're on a timer in that area and you're going hard, you're fighting monsters, you don't really get to appreciate a lot of the art assets in there.
Zoom.
And I was like, wow, damn, I want to use those trees, but have them, because I think they're petrified in that version. So I was like, what does that look like when it's a bit more alive, a bit more organic, a bit more gross? We kind of came up with this tree, and tree that hatches items, and it has this fruit, and then we were like, nah, like I don't want just a tree that has fruit. It needs to be gross and dark and horror. It's like this is a gothic world, and so we obviously went a little bit more crazy with the theming on it all. But I like it, right? It is dark. It's like a little. You've got this alien-esque demon species, right?
It's like squeezing the items out, like with a bunch of plus.
It kind of came like that, and then it's like, wow, it needs a meta progression. The good thing about the tree having a passive tree is we get to reuse all the same code that our passive trees use. And then the other, because it's good, because then you don't have to make a completely bespoke system. And again, it's picking your battles. For being able to
je pense qu'il y a juste une affaire que Sidekick va avoir besoin d'implémenter.
I think what's pretty interesting about it, though, is the way that it actually crafting is quite interesting. How it sort of encapsulates the idea that you've got various dependent choices. You don't normally think about crafting in that way, but that's really what crafting is, and so it kind of means that it's actually a surprisingly natural interface for crafting. It works really well, and so that's kind of a pretty.
Ben, tu l'as joué, je pense, dans Affliction.
I've never seen it before.
Dans Toxic Rain, puis c'est ça qui retient.
Crafting trees and stuff, but they're usually separate, or there's some little bit. But yes, that's what I was thinking, because I'm thinking a lot about how do you communicate crafting, because it's a pretty complicated thing generally, even at its simplest in Path of Exile. But this does seem to have a very natural, understandable way of communicating it, because you're allocating the nodes for the craft. You get to see the structure of your craft in a visual manner, which I'm like,
it is cool. How did we go this? So we've got multiple character trees. We've got world area trees. Is this the first crafting tree?
Well, kind of. There was the one with the.
Surtout que c'est la League, tu veux varier un peu.
That was items having trees. That wasn't a tree to craft. You could kind of argue Scourge is like the whole microwave mechanic, kind of, but it wasn't really a tree. It was like a grid. It was a bit different, So I don't know.
Mais elle est dans
true crafting tree.
Just
dans Breach,
wonder, we'll see, I guess, after a league, but I just kind of wonder if you've accidentally stumbled upon one of the potential solutions to how do you communicate crafting to players, because it's so hard to do. It's I don't know, maybe this has applications.
Honnêtement, pas crever,
we'll see how it goes.
C'est trop le fun.
There's a lot to expand on here, of course. When you have these kinds of tree systems, and immediately people are going to be like, oh, keystones and where's my crafting tree notables and masteries and jewel slots.
My cluster jewels for my crafting tree.
Yeah, build your own crafting tree.
Well,
we'll see where it goes, but obviously that depends. We don't want to overcomplicate it off the bat, so you come in with something kind of simple, elegant, see how it works, see how people respond to it, and then if things go core, because we always like to decide based on how the players respond, we can evaluate how we want it to be, if we want to change it, if we want to leave it as is, if we want to, so we'll do all that. But yeah, it's cool. I like a lot of the ideas coming here with that, with that and the grafts and stuff like that. It's pretty crazy cool things.
So talking about the idea of preserving some of the stuff from the old Breach, or what's not being kept. So you had the old Breach Lord domains.
C'est range, c'est l'affaire que le monde sont le plus confortable. Ils vont jamais rendre un beau build comme non-viable, parce que genre les noobs tout ça, c'est comme trop un standard dans un RPG de tirer des flèches sur un mob puis que le mob meurt. C'est comme tu peux pas mettre ça bad.
While playing in Keepers of the
Flame,
le monde
chiale, comme
all of the breach nodes on the Atlas tree are gone. And all that. So you've got the
pas forcé de jouer beau build,
our intention is that it goes core, but we'll take the better elements of it. One interesting thing here is obviously we still have all the old stuff. So if we miss the mark on some things, it's still there. We can bring it back. We can integrate it. We can, obviously it would suck, to have to accept that we have to keep using all the old art and old mechanics and old fight to some degree. But like, if they're more fun, they're more fun. We're not necessarily here in the business of taking away things that people love. So obviously I'm pretty confident in what we've got is going to be amazing. And as you said, first impressions pretty positive. So, but worst comes to worst, if we have to take the best of both worlds and merge them, then that's still what we're going to do. Now that being said, so yes, you don't have breach domains in Keepers of the Flame. You got all those new mechanics I described earlier. But that isn't to say there isn't a future where we have a prequel to the prequel, and we have or an update. Not necessarily another sequel, but you bring back some of those things that were good about it. So immediately I can see people coming to mind. Oh, but what about the uniques or the rewards?
Ouais, ça le tree c'est parce qu'il parle de crafting, moi ça m'a pas vraiment du crafting. Dans le Q&A, je vais l'arrêter.
Pretty much all of it. You can find. I won't reveal exactly.
Faut que je m'en remette dans le work un peu.
But you
Parce qu'à 5 heures, j'ai un meeting.
All of the historic rewards from Breach from the new mechanic as well. Tried to keep all of that.
Does this mean Breach rings finally get a revamp after sitting there with their silly thing? That
they got their improvement.
Parce qu'on connaît pas les modes list au complet. Il y a plein d'affaires qu'on sait pas si ça existe ou non, mais Fileborn. Ouais, faudrait. Mais ton... Ok. Ton micro est weird. Je sais pas si c'est... Ben, sur Discord, je sais pas si il est weird sur Twitch. Là. Je pensais que tu étais au courant. On dirait que ça sonne comme ton laptop ou ton cellulaire. Ah.
Cool. Sounds rather interesting. The unique craft.
C'est comme, il doit le savoir.
I was pretty excited to see that. I expected it to be like
j'ai dit te le dire avant.
and then just replace it with like a random rare modifier or something. But
ok. Weird as fuck, mon gars. C'est parce qu'hier j'ai updaté de quoi?
Ok.
My god, là. J'ai updaté OBS, pis tout a chié. Hein. Donc là, mon micro il est encore pété. Hein. Deux secs. Propriétaires. Filters. Comme là, il est dans le plancher, genre, c'est weird là ça. Anyway. Bonsoir. Ouais, qu'est-ce que je disais, c'est que. Tu dis qu'est-ce qui était le plus hypé, c'est les uniques, man, qu'est-ce qu'on va pouvoir dropper. Avec le tree, hein. Ouais, la random line c'est unique. Ça a l'air sick. À voir les possibilités. Puis sinon, c'est vrai que les graphes, ça a l'air cool.
Well, kind of fun. You love to see it. So the other thing was these creepy arms that you can grow on yourself. I love that. We just here have an arm. Sure. Just plug it in.
Moi, j'ai joué sur console. Les nouvelles méthodes de trade, bro. Trop la vie. Je sais pas comment tu tradais sur console, comment que ça s'arrangeait. Donc. Ah, ok, c'est pareil comme console. Ben là, ils vont l'importer sur PC, c'est ce que tu veux dire?
Especially so there's 16 of them, and you can have 2 of them, and they're like a mixture of auto casting skills, proc-based things, so like on attack or something, and manually cast in some cases as well. Like I had a tornado that was like crazy. So these seem pretty significant. What's kind of like the plan for how?
Qu'est-ce que ça dit? J'ai streamé le matin. Il y avait un gars qui m'a parlé, puis.
They'll definitely like very impactful while leveling.
Ok, ben c'était vraiment un bot de bon. Il m'avait parlé pis tout comme si je répondais, mais je répondais pas. Drôle. Anyway. Ouais, il y a trop de choses à checker. Ça va être cool. Peut-être jeu millier, hein. Les nodes, c'est ça là insane.
You'll notice like something I think you observed as well. The numbers on the scales are like out of control.
Yes.
That is because they don't scale with your stats.
Yeah.
Obviously, debuffs on the enemy, anything you debuff on them does. But yeah, they don't scale with your increases. The reason for that is that I wouldn't want it to be that if you're a spellcaster, you have to use one that's doing a spell, you know, because you generally focus on increases. And I didn't want it to be that, in order to benefit from grafts, you have to really only invest in global damage increases and stuff like that. It would restrict the character build.
Je me demande à quel point ça va prendre de temps pour remplir ton tree, genre de graph, pour le remplir à 100%.
Ouais, mais c'est ça. Ouais, ça, je sais pas s'il y a une limite au nombre de points que tu peux mettre. Tu peux tout specker à un moment donné, tu sais.
Non, c'est ça, ouais.
J'imagine que tu peux le specker à 100%. Tu sais, j'ai d'autres questions aussi. Est-ce que ce genre d'affaires-là, ça va aller core ou tu sais, c'est juste pour la ligne? Parce que techniquement, c'est Breach 2.0.
Ben, tu sais, il y a peut-être une limite, comme tu dis, mais gars, quand tu check, là, ici, ça, c'est le tree d'unique. Il a mis 2 points dedans, c'est tout. Mais tu regardes en bas, ici, il y a plusieurs branches. Il y en a mis 2, genre.
Je regarde ton stream.
Ah, ouais. Ben, je peux t'envoyer une image aussi. D'après, tu peux pas le mettre à 100%, mais tu peux te, genre, tu peux te mettre à 100% dans un tree, genre. C'est comme ça, tu tree unique. Lui, il a quasiment tout mis ici, je sais pas c'est quoi. Ah, ça, c'est currency, je pense. Fait que t'es pas limité.
Ouais, en bas à droite, c'est currency.
Ouais, ça. Fait que t'es pas limité.
En haut à gauche. En haut à droite.
Ouais.
T'as les crafts au milieu en bas pour genre tes hands. Ouais, ça se peut que tu sois juste pas limité pis tu peux juste
c'est sûr que tu vas pouvoir maximiser comme les trucs que toi tu veux juste crafter, genre tu vas maximiser dans le crafting, genre paf, tu vas avoir toutes tes shit. Il reste à savoir c'est quoi les affaires que tu veux pas que tu veux, genre ici, comment que ça marche.
Non, mais ça, c'est pour crafter des pieces d'équipement. Genre, mettons des boots ou whatever.
Ah, mais t'es crafté pas vraiment, ils vont dropper direct de même. Pis ça, c'est
ouais, non, mais
par
c'est ça, mais
rapport
que tu contrôles les odds, là.
Ouais.
Honnêtement, ça ressemble un peu à Necropolis, mais simplifié. Tu choisis, je veux speed, je veux les résils, je veux pas ça, puis go.
Tu sais, je suis en train de me demander, tu te farmes genre un inventaire avec plein de seeds, tu t'en vas, tu spec full crafter ça. Là, après ça, t'en as plus de ces seeds pour crafter des seeds normales. Ah, tu t'en vas full. Tu spec unique, tu fais des uniques. Genre, au final, ça va juste coûter des points de respect, genre, c'est quoi?
Ouais, je sais pas. Ça, c'est comme le refund. Tu dis refund 100% ou refund un pourcentage?
Ouais, ça a l'air bizarre un peu.
We'll see if that goes somewhere later, but I think that could be kind of
so like
to play around with. So.
Bizarre.
Some sort of like biomutant kind of combining of limbs and genetics and stuff potential here, maybe.
J'ai hâte de voir aussi les skills level 30 que tu peux avoir qui a l'air insane.
You don't necessarily scale them directly, like you're saying. You can debuff enemies and things like that. While we pan down to some of our additional questions, I've been noticing some that get mentioned.
So like I'm strong. It's a Heart of the Flame, le dégât de base, c'est 100 000 à 150 000.
Ouais, pis je suis sûr que ça scale avec ton tree pis tout, fait que l'affaire c'est que tu peux pas mettre des supports dessus, mais genre ça va faire mal, pis c'est juste de l'extra damage au final.
Ouais, c'est ça. Fait que... ça a l'air strong.
But yeah, it's just a question of getting through all that work, and then we can do it. Like I'm not against it by any means.
Fortune.
It's just, I mean, I want it to happen. It's just getting.
WSD sur PO1, je pense pas par contre. Je pense que je l'essaierai.
You want it to be kind of reaching a certain threshold, it seems like, of quality.
Well, I mean,
bah, je l'essaierai, mais je veux dire, je pense pas que j'y jouerai avec ça.
Where the character just rotates.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that gets like that.
I mean, ça devient le game, mais comme.
You know, like I don't think it
je sais pas si je jouerais avec ça.
So yeah, I kind of want to make.
À voir, hein.
Rigs that we can. Look, that would be so beneficial to everything anyway. Like we're highly motivated to do that because it means that we don't have to rig a bunch of stuff for the old rigs.
Ouais, ça veut-tu dire que Bridge va être dans toutes les maps? Je crois que oui, hein.
Oui.
that done, and then once
Ouais, c'est la
it's
ligue
gonna take a
mécanique, fait
while,
que ça,
and it could
c'est
be
comme. Ouais,
quite a
ça
while.
va être dans toutes les maps. Moi, je
Moi,
pense les mains, ils vont pas aller core
Yeah,
après, mais le reste, ça pourrait aller core en masse.
Ouais, ça reste à savoir qu'est-ce qu'il va encore, mais pour cette ligue-ci, ça a l'air insane.
Ouais, fait qu'il faut que tu fasses les breach, il y a du juice, t'as du power dans les mains.
Ouais,
Le timer,
puis,
je suis sûr qu'il est pas bon. Non, le timer est pas bon.
c'est supposé être une journée de
Parce que
plus.
Ouais.
Parce qu'il est marqué
Il manque une journée.
minuit 31.
C'est pas minuit, c'est midi, ça.
Ah, c'est
Midi,
midi.
31 octobre.
Ben, moi, ça veut dire que c'est supposé être le premier. Donc,
Ouais,
ça fuck.
minuit,
Ouais,
minuit,
ça, il y a une journée qui manque.
Pas minuit, mais 3h du matin.
Parce que là, comme qui est écrit, c'est le 30. Là.
Ouais, il manque une journée.
Habituellement,
C'est sûr que
c'est
c'est
une semaine et une journée. Donc, c'est fuck.
Ouais.
Weapon sets.
Malgré que ça me dérangerait pas, moi, ça me donnerait une journée de plus de gaming.
It's not great. It's really not great, and it would be like the cost of doing that would mean we'd have to do so much less other stuff. So yeah, I mean, just a random tangent on why the rigs would be beneficial as well. Like immediately, I'm just like, oh my god, please, I want to do new skills that are like.
But we will do it eventually. It's just
Beau, ça va être insane pour faire les breach. Mais ça va être de la merde sur les boss.
Ben encore là, c'est qu'il faut que tu one-shot, faut que tu one-shot les mobs, parce que si tu one-shot pas les mobs, tu vas être encerclé, puis en tant que beau, être encerclé, c'est la mort.
Ouais.
Fait que un bon build beau, oui, ça va torcher, mais genre, mettons que tu... Pour commencer à mapper, si tu vas beau, tu vas struggle, selon moi.
Moi, en même temps, je me dis, tu sais, la League, j'avais de la misère. Oui, mais on n'avait pas du power autant que qu'est-ce qu'on va avoir là, j'ai l'impression. Ça a l'air cool.
Le seul power de plus qu'on a, c'est les mains.
Ouais.
Puis on en a rien qu'une, la deuxième est unlockée quelque part dans le endgame, j'imagine.
Ascendancy supplémentaire, ah ouais, tu peux pas l'avoir.
Ascendancy, c'est dans le endgame, c'est quand tu tues les boss. Fait que c'est comme... C'est un petit bout, là.
Ouais, ça dépend. C'est pas tant si loin que ça, parce que c'est au Shabi, mais faut que tu le pètes. Mettons, pour un...
Ouais, mais c'est dans tes phases pareil pis tout, là.
À moins que ce soit la version Uber de chaque boss, je sais pas comment c'est. Oui.
Non, parce qu'il y a juste 8 Uber boss, il y en a pas 10, puis ils ont mis 10 trucs, fait qu'il y a 10 à faire.
TBD, who knows?
Ouais. Ça veut dire que c'est
pas
tant difficile à battre, là.
Non, c'est pas tant difficile à battre, mais tu sais, faut que tu farmes le fight pareil, puis tu l'aides.
We have a list of things that we could do. It's in that list. I'm sure it'll come up at some point. So we'll see.
Feel free to be coy about this, but it seems like.
Je veux dire, maintenant aussi, c'est pas tant difficile d'avoir les 4 Ascendancy, là. Fait que c'est pas tant long avant d'avoir ça.
Ouais, c'est pas PO2.
Non, c'est ça.
PO2 encore, toutes les petits, j'ai acheté mon carry. Je trouve ça plate.
Moi, je l'ai fait au complet. Ouais, malgré qu'on avait un bonhomme au pied. One Dead HCC 2.
Nice. I can see that. Alright, let's talk endgame, and I'm sure you're anticipating a discussion on Tier 17 modifiers, modifier design, their addition to memory strand maps, risk scarabs, and map modifier effects. So I list all these things out because they all come together to form a bit of a tangled mess of late endgame. And I'm just curious, like, before we even get into like what people are asking or what people are saying about it, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on this topic, I guess, of Tier 17 modifiers and their impact on late endgame.
I mean, the main thing I'd say there, like just as an overall view on it, is that like T17s, there's this tension between, like, it is not a good place to be when there is a tension between what players are enjoying and what the thing we want to try and do is. Like, that's like a problem that needs to be resolved. So effectively, it's like, what T17s are supposed to do in theory is something that we want, which is to say, like, you know, that like you
Genre, Début de la signe, T16.5 c'était insane. Okay. Ils ont nerfé, tout le monde a retourné T17, puis T17 ça reste le best.
So something does need to change, but it's a little bit tricky to come up with something that we want to like that both sort of.
Ouais, je sais pas trop quoi penser de ce truc-là.
T16.5 par contre, c'est pas super. Si tu veux commencer à farmer plus que T16, farm du T16.5 c'est insane. La différence c'est que T17, perso, je trouve que c'est encore mieux. Dans le fond, si t'es pas capable de farmer T17 pour encore, tu fais du T16.5, après ça tu changes pour T17, là, mais...
100%, they're not in the right spot. Yeah. I am of the like, we need to go back to the drawing board a little bit here, because like we, and to be fair, we are like trying to band-aid it, but we can only do that for so long. We kind of just need to reinvent something here a little bit. Yeah. Like they were intended to be the penultimate bosses that allow you to do the Ubers.
Right, yeah.
But they're also now, you know, also this non-sustainable map, and where you have to, obviously a lot of people feel like they have to trade for it, and then in the other cases you've got a bunch of modifiers people hate. You've got this like thing where because of the mods you end up devolving down to the in-game strat becomes, as you said, stacking map.
Marc il dit c'est de la merde. On essaie de le band-aid mais ça marche pas comme qu'on veut. Faudrait retourner au board puis refaire ça. T17.
Ah, dans le Q&A, il a dit ça?
Ouais.
Ah ouais! Colin, écrit ça me surprend par contre.
Il vient juste de dire I think it needs a full redesign.
So is this maybe like
D'accord.
separating out what you're trying to do?
Mais je pensais pas que il y aurait eu des alliés.
That is a split at the very least.
Ah, GG.
I don't think that we've worked out exactly how this can work though. Like,
I don't think that like the best, most rewarding content in the game should also be the tickets to the Ubers, and
il dit, il pense pas que ça que mettons les maps que tu farms devraient être aussi le ticket to the Ubers. Genre il veut que ce soit
quand tu veux
farmer tes Ubers ou tu veux farmer autre chose genre, mais tu veux pas tout ça dans la même genre.
C'est
ce qu'ils ont fait. Ils ont essayé de régler avec les 16.5, mais les 16.5 c'est ton nerfé, c'est comme, là c'est con un peu.
Puis il dit, tu sais, T17, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on veut pas, c'est des mods que genre, la majorité des mods, tu veux pas y faire parce que c'est de la merde. Fait que t'es genre comme fuck, genre.
Ouais. Ouais, c'est juste pas le fun. On veut du fun, ok?
But in the moment that it's like, it feels like a huge economic penalty to that, you're immediately like, you're immediately kind of...
But you get the thing right now where you stack the risk scarabs and then it's like, okay, only Trickster and Juggernaut can play it as a way of it's perceived. And, you know,
wait, ils vont changer les risques arabes? Please. Please.
Les quoi?
Les risques arabes.
Quoi les risques arabes?
C'est les meilleurs risques arabes du jeu. Risque arabe, qu'est-ce que ça fait?
Ah, c'est les affaires que ça rajoute des mods à ta map?
Ouais. C'est juste trop fort, surtout sur une map T17. Fait qu'est-ce que ça me fait dire, c'est que faudrait quasiment que je me trouve un build pour farmer T17, donc faut qu'il soit capable de faire tous les risques arabes, genre. Mais là, s'ils enlèvent, ça va me faire. Ah, ok, j'ai plus besoin d'avoir un build qui est capable de runner les risques arabes. Non, mais les risques arabes, ils peuvent les changer là.
Non, ils les changeront pas là.
Ben, ils peuvent enlever. Au lieu que ça ajoute 2 risques arabes. Tu sais, je veux dire, un risque arabe donne 2 lignes. Mais si un risque arabe maintenant il en donne juste une ligne supplémentaire, ça change tout, là. Ils vont peut-être les nerfer, ils vont peut-être pas, je sais pas. Le patch note est pas sorti.
Ouais. Mais non, souvent dans le Q&A, c'est que comme là, il doit être rendu dans la section qui parle de d'autres problèmes qui n'ont pas eu le temps de tacler. Puis là, ça, c'est des problèmes qu'ils savent, qu'ils connaissent. Mais
ouais, mais ils ont pas parlé là, de rien. Là. y a plein d'affaires qui n'ont pas parlé de la vidéo. Dans la patch note, ça va peut-être dire Rescarab nerf. C'est possible. C'est pas quelque chose que tu vas annoncer dans la vidéo. Là. Oh, les Rescarabs sont nerfs. Ça m'étonnerait pas sur nerf. Là. Parce que les Rescarabs, si tu jouais pas ça dans toutes les stratégies, la League, ça marchait pas. Là. Tu farmais plus. Là.
Like maybe in little ways, but I think everyone's kind of.
Okay, I gotta ask, like, is there someone who loves the 3 seconds out of every 10 seconds you can't deal damage modifier? Like,
I like it.
Okay, tell me why.
But I play support characters. I don't deal damage.
Okay. Alright, you're gonna jump on this grenade.
Il dit, y a-t-il quelqu'un qui aime le mode tu fais pas de dégâts pour 3 secondes sur 10? Castance?
I'm a bit more masochistic in that regard. So
c'est carrément, tu peux pas jouer au jeu pendant ce temps-là.
Ouais, puis Pacific Zalun, tu fais pas de dégâts, donc tu meurs.
Generally speaking, people aren't for that kind of thing. But, you know, I also like trying those things, seeing how it is, and, you know, there are places, there are things
je regarde mes... J'avais fait les strats à Pacific Zalun. Ok, ça c'est une strat de leveling. Leveling, on s'en fout des risques. Ici, un risque d'include pour speedrun T17 farming. Hop, pour farmer des maps 17. Celle-là, ah ça c'est ambush, c'est la strat, on n'a pas besoin de risque. Ah, Abyss Horde, 3-4 risques, ok. Alva Beyond, un risque. Harbinger T16+. Ah, Harbinger c'est la strat normale. Gigara Exile. Pas de risque ici. Giga non, pas de risque. Abyss Horde T17, 4 risques. N'importe quoi.
Well, I don't want everything to just be another multiplier making the monster get closer to one-shotting you. You know what I mean?
Mechanics to happen.
Yeah, you want something, but there are some that are okay, and there are some that are not, and we just haven't found the perfect spot.
There's an analogy about this, which is like, you know, how do you feel about immunities in D2? It's another sort of similar situation, right? Where it's like it forces you to change something about what you're doing, and a lot of people just really hate that. Yeah, and it's kind of like a similar sort of situation, I think.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I like the idea, but I don't like the execution of that at all. Yeah.
Right. Or the I think we're actually sort of running into a similar situation with this.
This is it is kind of your. Yeah, I mean, we've danced with this a few times in the past. We had some immunities on some pinnacle bosses and stuff like that. We talked about it in previous chats a long time ago. But so it sounds like some of those modifiers are changing then, if nothing else, maybe as the band-aids.
Sure, I mean, there's band-aids like that, but there is something like wrong here, though, to solve.
Pas grand chose de nouveau. On peut dire plus de choses, je pense. On attend juste la patch note.
And the Atlas tree in particular, I'd rather there was like 15 different ways to scale difficulty and reward, as opposed to just like, here's the stat I stack, and it's just like straight multiplicative. It's I don't know. I want, because obviously a lot of the stuff on the tree is affecting the leagues and the content. I want more than just map mod effect to be the way that you can multiply. And so it's like, oh, do I want to focus on this or do I want to focus on that? And there's like different builds within the like making things more harder and more rewarding. But yeah, right now it's just like, well, obviously I just stack all of that. Like quantifiably, it's obviously better, you know. And like this, I don't know. It's a little bit lame, honestly. It's kind of just a boring thing right now, and you know, I don't know. This, again, drawing board, 100%, back to it, revisit it. I'd be surprised if we're not doing something for 328 as much as I told myself I wasn't going to promise following expansion content, but you know.
There's some patch notes coming out later today. Is that, or is it later?
Yeah, I don't know what the time is, but you know, our 11 a.m. NZ or whatever it is kind of thing. Like,
there'll probably be like a rollout over time as well, from what I'm hearing, like
that's just generally the case because patch note writing is a surprisingly difficult task. It takes quite a while to get all that stuff.
I mean, you've got an extra week to make additional changes. Like people are like,
there's always that
like get extra ideas and stuff. And some of this stuff may be in there, but it can be have a look at some of those in there. But it sounds like we're kind of on the same page with you guys, at least regarding a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll. I mean, obviously, it obviously needs attention. So yeah.
All right, it's cool. So on Endgame though, in like a longer term, from a longer term perspective, we have a pretty good Atlas endgame system right now. Like I think it's pretty well liked, apart from this issue that we just talked about. Like overall, the core of it seems great. Like I can sing many praises about it. But previously, like historically, you've done a lot of complete endgame overhauls. And to the point that it was definitely a trend, like it seemed to be like the way that you guys would go about it. Like every so often there'd be a major endgame overhaul. Is that still the case? Like have you achieved something that you kind of want to keep and maybe change instead?
I don't think that we would want to not overhaul the endgame again. Like the reason that it's not like we're like, oh, this is what we're set on, we're now just going to keep this forever. Certainly not. It's more just it comes down to like it is hard to come up with the ability to do a scope for that, and it's been especially hard.
Il parle de revamp endgame.
You know, in early access. So it's kind of like we just need to get back to a point again where like that level of scope can happen, and I don't think it will be necessarily that far away from the point where that should be fine again. It's just that like you know, yeah, like
Là, il parle pas de PO2, il parle de PO1.
Can we get the ability and time to do it? But yeah, like I don't think, as I said, I don't think it will necessarily be that far away before we do something like that again. And like you do need to change the stuff every once in a while. Like it does become stagnant eventually.
Bon,
ok.
So,
j'ai des choses à faire, j'ai un meeting en 30 minutes, fait que pas moi y aller, mais si tu as de l'information dans le Q&A, share.
Ouais, il parlait qu'il va y avoir un revamp dans pas long, c'est ce qu'il dit. Il dit qu'on n'est pas trop loin d'un autre revamp.
Ouais, parce que j'imagine le 7.5, 17, c'est un peu floppy. Dans le bon revamp qu'ils ont fait récemment, je dirais c'est les scarabs, enlever les... Puis enlever les compass, ça c'est quand même gay.
We'll have to do eventually. It's just getting time.
That kind of stuff, like escalating the narrative and cycling out bosses and cycling out characters and you know, changing all that stuff is like generally pretty harmless and generally cool. Like you're not really messing with the systems and the core of what people like and the cycle that people like.
C'est un jeu qui est là-bas? Non.
So like obviously that's always just a nice win when you get to be like, all right, what are the next set of what you know,
bon.
much like Breach.
Bon dodo, mais je ne vais pas le coucher.
Ouais, je vais me coucher dans... Peut-être après pas de chose, je vais voir.
And you know, we will do that
for
sure. It's just like there's always mechanics that come with it. And sometimes if you add those mechanics, they can't coexist with some existing ones because it overcomplicates everything, it becomes a mess. I'd hate to have, you know, I don't want to add more systems and now all of a sudden it's extra steps even more over to have to do on your maps before you run them and that kind of stuff. So sometimes things need to be replaced, but like, you know, we appreciate the fact that PoE1's endgame is in a pretty overall. I mean, everything always has its problems. I'm not going to deny it. We just discussed them, as you said, but it's in a pretty damn good spot, and there's so much good about it. And I don't want to ruin that. So yeah, we'll be very careful with that stuff. But honestly, generally, we'd like what you might find is that we use this T17 thing as a motivation to go, what is the redesign? Okay, let's use that as the like, crux of what we design around and fix the problem both narratively and like game design wise by removing these problems from the game, creating something new in its stead. And yeah.
I think what I'm most curious about is like if let's say you went into a meeting today to try and come up with a new end game for PoE1, like an overhaul for it, would it still have an Atlas passive tree like it has now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I already,
there's no way you'd get rid of that.
I already know.
Too good, right?
I already know what it is, so I already have it in my mind.
Oh, okay. you were saying before last time that
it's deep in my mind.
You've got a story arc planned.
Well, the Secrets of the Atlas was intended to be part one of a multi-part, right? So I've got the other parts, or at least most of it. And yes, the tree is still there. And honestly, I don't think anything is fundamentally in my plan in my head is changing enough to cause any concern. So, I mean,
all right, great.
It's all for the better. I'm pretty confident of that as well.
Great.
And now everyone will have to just wait to see what those ideas are for an undetermined amount of time.
I assume we'll get a follow-up to the story maybe next expansion, perhaps, of following along what's happened. That was pretty interesting.
We'll
one.
see. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about balance. There wasn't too much revealed about balance in the reveal trailer stuff itself, but I know it was mentioned that there would be a bit of balance stuff going on here, and I've had a chat to a few people and scoped out some things. Like, for example, there is the unplayed assassin that gets asked about a lot, and it seems like something's happening for assassin.
Yeah, that actually came kind of recently. We were just like, can we really... I think what I had said, and my intention was to do this for both games, is like, we should at least look at... Like, at least with respect to ascendancies, look at the least played class, especially if it's been consistently least played.
Yeah.
And make sure that that's on the radar and getting some level of improvement. And even if it means we have a go at it, and if the scope's too high, we do it a bit later, and if the scope's within spec, we do it immediately. In this case, yeah, we looked at the assassin. It was like 40% lower, at least on the primary leagues, you know, it was like much lower usage than even the next class. And then, you know, so it wasn't doing very well. And it's been the case for a little while. So we were like, look, let's just do something. Like, come on, it's better than doing nothing. So obviously we just put together what we could over a couple days and kind of mix and match. We had like 3 or 4 different iterations, and, you know, came back when we were looking at it, you know, it was like the whole, you have the interesting thing, you go, and look, you look at the class and it's like, why is the ruthless poison node better than the non-ruthless poison node? Weren't the classes on ruthless meant to be a bit weaker? And then it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's a thing we can maybe draw inspiration from. And, you know, we just did our whole like process for
Amazing.
that. But yeah, so we teased that last night, whatever the time zone is. You know, hopefully people enjoy it and play it. But yeah, I kind of want to get into the rhythm of every expansion. At least we look at, not necessarily change because it depends on the scope a bit, but we at least give it a go of making sure we look at the worst class no matter what, even if ascendancy classes aren't part of our, like, you know, the package of things that we're wanting to improve. Because sometimes we do a focus on ascendancy classes, other times skills, other times this, other times that. And but I was like, okay, it's like, this is pretty bad.
Fuck, je veux farmer des uniques.
And see if we can be consistent with that.
Encore une semaine pour les farmer.
But, you know, we'll try.
And there's a little bit of a wild card in the mix here with Bloodline Ascendancies. So just to clarify, these are Ascendancies on top of your original class that you can choose where to put your points.
Same point pool. And the reason we a lot of people ask, or immediately are like, well, why don't you give separate points like Affliction? And the real reason is combinations are great, but also I didn't want to have to water down the power of the points. That's too much power creep, like, to add to a character to be able to give trees at large. And so there was that interesting part of it. The other second part is that we wanted to make sure that there weren't enough points that you could put all 8, at least generally speaking. So you'll find most of the classes only have 1 to 3 notables, kind of up to 6 points worth that you can spend.
Yep.
And this is so always, no matter what ascendancy you are still matters. I didn't want to just make it that literally the entire game, no matter what base class you are, where you start on the tree, is the same if it happened to be that a certain bloodline was OP, it's, you know, which I'm sure one of them probably is. And all of a sudden now every single person is just this one thing. It wanted to be like, nah, I think we want to do a feature that adds as much in-game build permutations as possible.
Yeah.
Well, and also what's cooler than just being able to take the powers or learn the powers of your favorite boss for the purpose of a fantasy. Let's mix and match these things. And now you get this cool, like, okay, I'm a Templar. I'm all about, you know, holy powers, but I'm also going to embrace my dark side over here, or maybe the ways of the Asmerian. You get like a Shabi Guardian thing or something. Oh, sorry, I've got support classes on my brain all the time. So, you know, you have your Slayer something, you know. So, you know, the permutations honestly are endless. And obviously metas are found and builds are created and all of that. But what we obviously find is that, well, there's a few awesome perks here that I kind of like, is that we can add motivation to doing certain content that otherwise you wouldn't normally do. That's great. We can add this for future content very easily, right? There's probably other bosses that you're like, oh, we can do this and this and this. Like, it's very easy to expand this and take it away. And the reason we're able to do that is because it is an in-game feature. It's not like overcomplicating the campaign and that player's experience. Like, you wouldn't want a second class in the campaign. People were like, holy, I've already got a tree and I've got this tree.
You mean a third class?
A second, essentially. It's like, okay, I've got too many classes. There's too much stuff going on. So being able to keep it in the end game is an in-game unlockable thing. where we can expand this feature over time. Now, all of that, of course, is under the assumption it succeeds. Again, we'll listen to the feedback, check what players think about it. But assuming it does well, again, pretty high confidence. Yeah, it will remain and we'll keep expanding, keep extrapolating, keep changing. And then it's yet another lever where we get to add so many different builds, because one bloodline being able to then be paired with all, 19 ascendancy classes is just like, all right, we've got a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of different options, a lot of cool things you can
Plus
do.
de depth, plus de...
I mean, I am actually really
plus de
excited
différence dans
to
les builds.
see what happens here. More than most things, I'm always like kind of excited to see what players do with things, but like here I'm just like I don't know. Let's see what happens. Like, it's gonna be real cool, and I suspect you'll get, like, for quite a while, people narrowing down on exactly what the perfect combinations are for different things. And, yeah.
Well, this definitely seems like one of those things where you just design something cool and we'll see what players do with it, because there's too many permutations there, right? Like, I don't even know what the math on that is, but it's pretty crazy, the amount of like new nodes.
Number.
Yes, several
infinite. No, not
several dozen new nodes accessible to all of the existing ascendancies. That's a lot of numbers.
Yeah. I'm like thoroughly excited. I'm gonna just do the whole, like, what boss do I feel like being this league? I'll just see if I can make that work, and then so I'm actually gonna go backwards. I'm gonna pick my bloodline based on what boss I want to kind of embrace the power of. Then I'll pick my ascendancy. Then I'll pick my I'll go from there. And then I'll pick my skill, and I'll end up a support character. I'm sure.
Flavor building on this.
Well, if there's no mercenaries, I need to be a good mercenary to my friends. That's my philosophy.
Yeah. Back to being mercenary again, eh? So this isn't tied to Breach League, the Keepers of the Flame. It's a core game feature.
Fini, on veut la patch note.
Yeah, cool. And saw someone asking about Forbidden Flesh and Flame. I assume that wouldn't work with this.
Not with these, but that isn't to say there won't be some future uniques that maybe do.
I mean,
we'll see what happens.
There's an option there, isn't there? Yeah. Okay.
Come on, c'est long, man. C'est quoi ça? On s'en fout. S'en fout. Patch note, please.
Skills
yeah,
as well?
we're always, there's a little bit of there's a few things to go into here. Like, for example, yes, there's obviously the core skills that are bad. Sometimes those are then enabled by something else going on, some other feature getting added, uniques, whatever. But most of the time, yeah, they're just, as you said, underprivileged. We've done a decent chunk of numerical changes here, mostly numerical. Some are, I don't want to say unsalvageable, but like, you know, they don't have the same level of different multiplicative scaling that other skills could get. There's not too many though. And they require more, what I'm getting at there is they require more of a rework in order to actually become, you know, truly viable.
C'est
that being
long.
said, yes, there are plenty that always need numerical improvements. I don't know, and then you got things like the Trathan gems, right? Cool concept. You know, 90% of them weren't really seeing any use.
Yeah.
A few were, and now those are going core, I believe, into heist is what it is. But as meanwhile, also full balance pass. So hopefully some more come to the foreground there, and you know, so on. So like, yeah, but like honestly, this is like a kind of endless task. It's like almost like you could just never stop. So like, we like to just do batches at a time and send it, and we try and do as many as we can. But like each require discussions. They can be quite time consuming. Some are more obvious, where it's like, okay, obvious increase, and others are like, do we want to do this or do we want to rework it? And then you get lost in a rework discussion. It's important to like cut the time. And it's like, actually, look, for now, buff it. We'll come back to it later. But yeah, like we get through as many as we can. We've done a bunch. You know, I could always say, ideally we'd do more, but like, I don't think, again, there's no real end point to that. So yes, sure. I wanted this patch to be very class centric in terms of balance, and like we did.
Yeah,
I would say we did a decent chunk, but it's, you know, we didn't get to cover every base 100%. So obviously, like, you got the bloodline classes, you've got grafts, which are character centric, and then we got the whole set of new skills and support gems, and some changes around that. There are a bunch of other changes, but yeah, like, it's that thing where I don't know if I'm ever satisfied. I always you want to do everything. You want to literally do it all, and you never can. So like, hopefully there's enough certainly should be enough to shake up the meta, should be enough to make everything feel fresh and some awesome cool new stuff, but like, you know, don't be surprised if a particular person's favorite skill didn't happen to get touched. Like,
that's the interesting thing about the skill buffs idea, is that you manage to achieve these days very, like, there's lots of different builds, and they're changing a lot each league as well, by virtue of like the new stuff that you're adding, like ascendancy changes or new skills or whatever. All that stuff is creating lots of new builds all the time. But when it comes to the skill buffs, I think it's more just about, like you said, like someone has like a favorite skill that has been languishing. Some sweep lover is out there just crying still.
It sucks to miss something, like, because you see, because what happens when you buff everything, then you get a lot of like, but what about this? And you're like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I really wanted to, and you know, and then sometimes we still try and just squeeze it in before the patch, and we just try and get as many done as we can. But yeah, like again, it is ultimately a resource game, and we do as much as we can. We really do, combined with both new stuff to change everything up, bringing like excessive outliers down, and we do try and improve as much as we can. And this time we took it upon ourselves to add a bunch of new skills and supports, and so I don't know, there's heaps there, but you know, it's that thing where a few people are going to have missed their thing, and there's a few, you know, you want to do hand casting, you want to do that, you don't want it to just, I know that's come up, and I think even you mentioned earlier as well, it's just like, it devolves down to often, you know, either Archmage or you know, Ephemeral Edge and like that kind of stuff being just like, well, obviously, right, quantifiably better, and so yeah, just the ideal thing where, you know, we'd make some changes to some of those, and ideally it'd bring up all of something else, but you know, sometimes you get some of it, not all of it, and everything. But yeah, there's heaps here, just, you know, you never quite catch everything, but there will be new metas, there will be new builds, and probably a lot of existing stuff will still be, you know, pretty decent.
Il parle pour parler, là. Il devrait juste y aller, là.
You know, it's how it goes with all of this balance stuff, really. It's a bit chaotic, but, you know, there's something satisfying to it, but yeah, as I said, you never really fully get everything, and thus you never fully feel satisfied.
You kind of answered my question a bit, because like one of the popular archetypes that's come up as being a bit problematic is hand casting, self-casting spells, and usually I think what gets brought up with that is like slow base cast speed, and that in turn making things like echo feel bad, and mana costs being
I don't think we've done that enough justice, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's certainly on the hit list. Yeah. So we'll either we can get to do some stuff, you know, in this coming week if it's simple, if we can think of it. It's not off the cards. That being said, there's always next expansion as well, but honestly you never know, because often these external variables like the new classes and stuff like that can really change these things up, you know, without you really predicting it as well. So you know, I can't speak to what we'll do in 3.28 with respect to all of this, because we have to observe what happens in this patch first, given how many variables we've added, and like we said, we've added a nearly infinite number of permutations of builds with the new bloodline classes and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see how all that goes. And then, but we'll just keep doing it. It never stops, never ends. It literally is an infinite task. You never run out of stuff to do here. So we'll just keep doing it every single patch as best as we can.
Well, that comes up a lot as the kind of dominance of ES stacking and kind of stacking builds in general, but ES probably has been getting mentioned a lot more. Forbidden Ride, Ephemeral Edge, things like that, but also just ES compared to Life as well.
Yeah, it does happen.
Classic.
You know, there are band-aid fixes and stuff like that we always like to do, whether or not you can consider them band-aids or just like, you know, you just change some numbers here and there. Sometimes in the case of like Ephemeral Edge, it can be a matter of like, yeah, that's an acceptable thing to do. It just shouldn't be so easy to do. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's no broad solution here, but yeah, I agree that it is a problem where it's like the more traditional just do a thing feels like it's now wrong. It feels like you got to like pre-commit to being like, what is this singular thing I'm going to stack and then pick the thing that scales off of that. So be it like attributes historically, you know, not just thinking current meta. It's always it's always like, yeah, you just like heavily stack this one thing and here's a unique that scales off that thing. And it's like, well, that's on one part is interesting. It's like fun. That is the build.
I'm in two minds on it.
But then when every build is just like, okay, well, that's stacking this, that's stacking that, that's stacking, and you start going through the builds and you're like, okay, well,
we definitely like very slowly got here over time. I feel like in the stacking where it just became kind of like just a little bit at a time. It became PoE 1 became all about stacking builds.
It really primarily comes down to mostly to the unique items that got added, right?
Yeah, it's often
generally a unique item's special thing is like, what am I going to scale off? Be it off evasion or off armor or off energy shield or off life or off ES or mana and or off int or off strength. It does end up in that, and then some unique gets added, like maybe it's 1 per year, and it's like, oh, here's another 6% increased intelligence. There we go. That build's now just got a little bit more of an edge, and you do kind of just power creep into that point for sure. So
it's like I don't even know like how much of a problem it is, but it's like definitely identifiable that it's like a big aspect of the build meta for PoE 1.
It is. I think
it's other things out maybe.
I think it's too dominant, but on the other hand, it's
fun though. Like, people
it's
like
fun. It's cool. It's interesting.
So you don't really want to.
You could argue it's what makes things kind of it's part of PoE to a degree.
Yeah, it's an actual action RPG.
Yeah, so you got to be careful with it. You don't just want to take away all the fun and just make everything flat and boring. On the other hand, but you also don't want it to feel like a player's made a mistake by playing a more traditional, build, and it often can feel that way. So there's a fine line here. Hard to be at that fine line, but yeah, some things are a bit too OTT at this point, and other things are too far on the bottom end. And the other problem is if they start buffing all the skills, well, a lot of those skills might see use, but they'll still see use in that stacking ecosystem, and then it's like, well, have you really made a new build at that point?
I think that's sometimes the problem is like, my builds feel the same. Ultimately, like, I'm using different skills, but I'm just stacking on all of them or something like that.
I don't have here's the solution.
Yeah,
because it really isn't how it actually. It's not really how it plays.
Kind of gauging your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy discussing it. It's just a matter of like, it's honestly 500 different solutions, and we need to just chip away at them and mold it, and it will eventually shift into something else, and then that will be meta, and then that will be complained about probably after a while, and then something else will be, and it's the cycle. It is balance. It is as I said, it's an infinite amount of work, and we just need to keep doing it. Like, you don't give up on it because it can never be solved. You just keep going, and as long as people are having fun, and you don't like compromise the philosophy of the game ultimately, then you're winning, right?
Balance is a journey. Yeah, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey.
It is. It actually is.
For real.
I mean, sure, it's the stops along the way. Every expansion.
That's it. Yes.
Every reroll.
Well, a nice stop on this expansion I noticed is wands. So you did actually mention it last 326 Q&A. You said wands specifically. I went back and watched, and I was like, oh, interesting. I should ask about that. And then you showed off a bunch of wand skills, and it seems like there's some nice wand buffs going on in there to help wanders out.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things. There's like a bit of a hidden gem is that there's attack mod only wand based types in the series now. So they're literally, and they're kind of themed more around kinetic
wands.
Wands, and so because that's always been a bit of an annoyance. Like, there is a place for the hybrids, but that's been a bit of an annoyance. So now we get the like pure attack ones to help it a bit easier to roll for those builds. You got way more of a skill set to pick from now, and then I mean, generally speaking, the skills. They can be pretty hectic. They can scale pretty well.
Kinetic round is very hectic.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a cool theme, just like that general kind of like physical kinetic energy kind of thing going on. We had a little bit of it with kinetic bolt, kinetic blast. So we just extrapolated on that theme, and you got your wanders, and it's the thing. And then we also added a little bit of like kind of wind magic, some tornado stuff.
It's like a force wall that you can
the kind of force wall. You've got like a little bit of inspired by Huntress from PoE 2 a little bit with some of the I walked upstairs the other day and saw some QA playing, and I'm like, oh, someone's embracing the tornadoes, and he's like, that's not even half the tornadoes you can make. And I was like, all right, sweet, all right. I was like, yeah, that's PoE 1, and I walked out of the room. I was like, all right.
I blasted, like, I went through 4 yesterday on a wander, and I was just like, man, this is so good. I was having the time of my life. Like, oh my lord, the new skills and the wands. And it's like, it's not just the kinetic ones as well. Like, it actually pairs pretty well with the other ones that have like the flat added elemental damage. And and it all kind of came together a bit. It's like,
it's cool.
I definitely in the past I just kind of like wrote ones off. I was like, yeah, they're never gonna get to ones. It's like forgotten about.
It's always been pretty kind of just, it's niche. It's actually an interesting thing. I mean, obviously it was designed before I started on PoE, and I always thought, I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like that wands that aren't about just spellcasting. It's they're about doing attack damage. I thought it was interesting.
Pistolero style. That's what I like about it. Wands.
Yeah, this might be the largest update to wand attackers that we've ever had in now like 15 years or something. So
finally, look, I know there's some people in the chat that have been a long time waiting for this one.
Yeah, you're right. It has been
your
forever.
moment has finally come. It's good
cool.
stuff.
Yeah, there's a few other little gems in there as well, like some fire archer kind of things, and there's some that we want to still extrapolate on, but like wands was the main focus.
Yeah, definitely a lot of love for wands, and pairing in nicely with the added skills from the hands on your back as well. Pretty cool. Yeah. Lots of fun synergies there. So we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but shifting gears a little bit, I'm curious about the long-term development of PoE 1. Like, how much is PoE Classic, PoE 1 kind of like sacrosanct to you? Like, how much do you like not want to change it? Or because you've been taking things from PoE 2 and feeding them back into PoE 1, and I'm curious, like, is there points you get to where you're like, well, actually, let's not push it too much closer to PoE 2 in that direction, but keep it its own thing, or maybe like actually let's kind of preserve it as it is to some extent?
I wouldn't want PoE 1 to ossify into something where we feel like we can't change stuff. Like, that would be bad.
Cool.
But
sounds cool though.
Yeah, but it's kind of like okay, the stuff people that we'll probably take back from PoE 2 is more around the sort of QOL areas of stuff, right? So obviously, people would have been rioting if we hadn't brought async trade from PoE 2 into PoE 1. That's obviously something required. And so it's been sort of nice that we get to do a little bit of like proving grounds in some cases in PoE 2 for some of those changes to see whether or not it'll be okay. The thing we wouldn't ever do to PoE 1 is make changes that would break what people like about it fundamentally. So there's things like the trickiest parts, things like the way that item drops are and stuff like that. Like, I don't know that, like, even though there are things I don't like about that, I don't think we could necessarily change them either. In terms of, so like there's stuff like that you just have to kind of like let it be, because they could easily break stuff that people really like.
It kind of raises the question, like, what is it about PoE 1 that is like that does need to be kept? That is kind of what makes it feel like itself that people do love about it.
I think that it's hard to even define that, quite frankly, because like it's a mix of things. I mean, look, the thing that PoE 1, I guess, has become known for, as opposed to PoE 2, is just like the combat pace stuff, like where it's just like ultra fast in a lot of ways. But it's not like there was like a goal to make PoE 1 like that either. It just kind of is. And so you wouldn't like it's I wouldn't even want to nerf that about PoE 1, right? Like, it just is how that is, right? So that's like really the fundamental difference. But the thing is, I think actually that the community sees more differences between the two games than what we do. Like, from our perspective, like, it's like there are I don't even know how to really get into this exactly, but it's like, we're just trying to make a good game. And it's like, it's not like we changed design philosophy or anything like this, right? Like, it's the same design philosophy from the same designers. Like going on in both. It's more just a question of like PoE 1 got a bit out of control in certain few aspects, and that's kind of become part of its DNA, and so we can't really change that. And so when it comes down to stuff like that we'd take from PoE 2 to PoE 1, well, it's just like all the things that PoE 1 players would like, and none of the things that PoE 1 players wouldn't, really. I mean, look, that's ultimately we want to be doing. But yeah, I wouldn't want it to be. I wouldn't want to be in a situation, as I said before, where it's like, okay, we're like PoE 1 is in some kind of perfect state that needs to be preserved forever. Like, I don't think it's like that. We do need to be able to make changes. So yeah, it's just a question of,
I think a pivot with PoE 2 out, and this isn't obviously black or white, but PoE 1 is, we always had and this is still true, we still want to bring in new players. But I would say PoE 1 now, it's more important to us to keep the PoE 1 player base, the fans of the game, the long-term players, the people who love PoE 1 happy, as opposed to going, we need more new players, we bring people in. Whereas obviously PoE 2 is still now a growing game. There's a new audience available, that kind of thing. So obviously we still want people who love PoE 1 to love PoE 2. That's the ideal world. But that being said, when we're looking at PoE 1, we're not going to like try and do anything that's going to compromise what the fans love about it in order to bring in a new set of players at this point. Like, I would say that's going to be pretty rare. So it's about making sure that the people who do love the game continue to love the game, and that's why you're probably going to see less in the way of like some grand structural change to all kinds of stuff, because you know, if that change would bring in a bunch of new players. Like, I think making sure you have a good, popular game that people love will inherently bring people in, because people will see that positivity and be like, I'm going to give this game a try. Yeah, less focus on bringing in new, more focus on keeping the existing fan base happy. And whereas obviously with PoE 2, it's a bit of a different story, where we really did think like, you know, there's a new room for a new audience here, there's room for a different audience, like we want to make sure we get as many of those players as possible. What would it take to do so? But ultimately, end of the day, what that then ended up boiling down to, aside from obviously modernizing graphics, changing the feel of combat, honestly, the biggest change is just balance.
I don't necessarily even think about it, I think, in the same ways. Like, I'm not thinking I'm making changes to bring in new players. I'm thinking, like, what are the things that I want to improve that I think that we can't change about PoE 1, because they are somewhat like you know, would be impossible to change just due to the game field changing so much.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, like really for me, it's like, you know, I'm on a 20-year quest to make the perfect ARPG, right? That's my sort of like design thing. And it's like nothing actually changed between PoE 1 and 2 philosophically, other than just learning about some things and deciding, you know, I want to improve things in certain ways.
I do think there is a little bit of an assumption that a lot of philosophical discussions occur with respect to, like, outside of talking about dexterity and stuff like that. Honestly, most of it is just like, we're just kind of get real passionate and just start coming up with real cool ideas of shit that sounds cool that we want to deliver. Like, we're not really having discussions about like, hey, okay, today, Jonathan, let's have a discussion about how many new players we can bring in. Like, we don't do that. It's about like, I'm trying to boil down what we are. You know, I'm trying to turn it into a philosophy, but the reality is the process is just like, how can we make cool shit? That's it. Cool shit that's fun, that doesn't like compromise things in too thing of a way. Things people will love, things people will enjoy. That is the ultimate goal at the end of the day. As I said, making whatever the visions are of this infinite quest of making the perfect ARPG. So, like, you know, it's always interesting trying to be like, how can what are the rules? What are we going to change? What at the end of the day, it's just like, well, I don't know, we'll just continue to make cool shit. And that's just generally what we're going to do. And so, I don't know. It's actually a little bit hard to try and decipher that down into like a set of rules or something.
La patch notes, donc
if it's cool and it's fun, if people love it, then it's a win. And
it's good that both games have room to breathe on their own, then, because you can preserve the things that do make PoE 1 its DNA, but are objectively like limits to But I do have an important question for you.
Joue mon stream, on va regarder les vidéos, puis on va regarder la patch note, and fuck off. I'm dead.
You got a few hours?
See, I know this is every time I come over here, I feel like this comes up. It's been going for a while, hasn't it?
Oh, for
dexterity.
sure.
What do you get for dexterity? You still haven't solved that one,
At this point, I just feel like nothing.
Je pense que c'est
It's
just vibes.
We just call it plus. We rename it to green attribute. It just does nothing.
It's a little organic attribute. Very nice.
Peace. Trop long, man. Faut que j'aille me dormir. J'ai genre même pas dormi 2 heures, puis genre 5 heures du matin. Donc, peace. À plus.